The zombie apocalypse had arrived, but I slept right through it and completely missed the community's COVID test. I also missed the property management headcount. My name is Zhou Xiaomo, and right now, I'm completely dumbfounded. I had planned to go home and surprise my parents. But instead, I was the one who got a surprise. So because my cousin from third uncle's family had a baby, you all went to the banquet. Why didn't I know about this? Weren't you out of town? So we didn't tell you. Alright, watch the house yourself. Your dad and I will be back the afternoon after tomorrow. That's it. You're home now anyway. She hung up. What a loving mother. I stood at the front door loaded down with bags, staring speechlessly at the security door. I'd already taken leave from work. It's not like I could go back now. Looking at all the bags in the living room, I couldn't even force a bitter smile. My planned surprise was ruined. But life goes on, right? Still, what am I supposed to do with everything I ordered online? Just then, the doorbell rang. My delivery had arrived. By the time I finished sorting it all out, I was exhausted. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, reality hit me again. There was no food at home. More precisely, nothing cooked and ready to eat. Of course, everyone went to the banquet, so why cook? At that moment, I wasn't just miserable. Even my eyes started stinging. To vent my frustration, I went out and treated myself to a huge meal. Then I bought a mountain of snacks I usually avoided while dieting, or wasn't allowed to eat at home. Why? Pure rebellion. Shopping is the best cure for a bad mood. I felt much better after I got home, but when I saw there wasn't a single new WeChat message, I thought, fine, they didn't tell me before, but now that I knew, couldn't they at least send me a video or photo? Thinking about it made me angry all over again. Forget it. I'm going to sleep. Whatever happens, happens. I closed every curtain, put in noise-blocking earplugs and an eye mask, and muted my phone. From this moment on, even if the world ended, nothing was going to disturb my sleep. And then, I successfully slept through the neighborhood quarantine notice. I missed the property management's door-to-door check. I missed the residents' COVID testing and supply distribution too. What finally woke me was the need to pee. After taking care of that, I checked my phone. It was around 3 in the morning. I'd actually slept for 12 hours straight. No wonder I felt so refreshed. I opened a tiny gap in the curtains. I was about to get poetic, leaning on the railing, watching the endless rain. But one glance outside showed that the neighborhood entrance had been barricaded. What was going on? Why had everything suddenly gone crazy? Had the outbreak come back? Confused, I checked the phone I'd muted. When I saw the community announcement, I was even more speechless. Seriously? I'd slept through not only the quarantine notice, but even the supply pickup. Quarantine wasn't new to me. I spent most of college living through lockdowns, so I wasn't panicking, but I was definitely annoyed. I finally got some vacation time, and not only could I go nowhere, I was locked inside my own home, and no one else was here. Who was I supposed to complain to? Oh, and I couldn't work until quarantine ended. That made it even more depressing. In the pitch black night, only the streetlights kept me company. And then, right at that moment, I saw several people walking in the road. Even if there were no cars, why walk down the middle of the street at night? Were they drunk? I was just complaining to myself when several police cars pulled up. A squad of fully armed police officers got out. Just when I thought those people were about to be arrested, something strange happened. The people who had been shuffling around slowly suddenly lunged at the police. They were unbelievably agile, like stunt performers on TV. The police had the advantage in numbers, but some officers were still knocked down. Then a full-on brawl broke out. The police were well equipped, and currently had the upper hand, but the other side moved like trained stuntmen. And they didn't seem to feel pain. Even after being kicked away, they got right back up, like any curious bystander. My first instinct was to record the commotion, but I was still cautious. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I secretly filmed from behind the curtain. My phone camera had pretty good resolution, so looking through the screen was actually clearer than looking directly out the window. As I watched, something started to feel wrong. Those so-called stuntmen definitely weren't normal. Their faces had a greenish tint, and their veins were bulging. I felt like I'd seen something like this before, while I was still trying to remember. I saw one of the stuntmen bite straight into someone's neck. My mind went completely blank. Then I remembered. This scene. I'd seen it in zombie apocalypse movies and videos. Was this really the end of the world? Those people weren't drunk. They were zombies. I swallowed my fear and kept watching. In the end, I saw those stuntmen being loaded into a black vehicle. Then the convoy drove away. Everything looked as if nothing had happened. The night became eerily quiet again, without a trace of what had just happened. But I knew none of it had been a dream, because the whole thing was still recorded on my phone. I must have looked terrible at that moment. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and my legs had no strength. I tried to stand up, but failed again and again. Whether this was really the apocalypse or not, I had to warn my parents immediately. Even if it wasn't, the lockdown itself was real. They needed to protect themselves, stay inside and prepare for the worst. So, before it was even 4 in the morning, I called my mum. What's wrong? Why are you calling in the middle of the night? I'd managed to hold myself together until then, but suddenly the tears poured out. Mum, listen to me. Everything I'm about to say is true. You have to remember it. You're calling me in the middle of the night. So it must be something serious, right? I heard a burst of hurried movement on the other end, as if they were getting ready to leave. Mom, don't go outside. Whatever you do, don't go outside. Things have gone crazy in our neighborhood. Gone crazy? Did they find another outbreak? Don't panic. I just had some flour milled. There's vegetables in the fridge too. It's only quarantine. It'll be over in a few days. It's not just quarantine, Mum. I saw zombies. This isn't an ordinary lockdown. You have to believe me. Don't cry. Have you watched too many movies? Maybe your dad and I should come back. Don't come back. Don't go outside. Believe me, I recorded a video. Watch it now. I quickly sent the video over. After seeing it, my parents had no choice but to believe me. I watched it. Don't panic. We never removed the security door the previous owner left behind. That kind of door can't be opened from the outside. And as for food, Momo, you'll have to learn to cook for yourself. There's enough food at home to last you 2 months. Your dad and I can't get back right now. Take good care of yourself. I'm not worried about food. I'm really just worried about you too. I'm fine. What about you? Do you have enough food? Don't worry about us. Your grandma just harvested a batch of cabbage, and we have even more grain stored here. Just take care of yourself. On the other end of the call, my mom and dad kept reminding me what to watch out for. It was already too late to prepare much more. All I could do was make the best use of what I already had. Then I suddenly remembered something else. Weapons. Other than kitchen knives, there wasn't a single thing at home I could use for self-defense. I had myself wrapped up like a dumpling, because without anything to defend myself with, I just couldn't feel safe. After thinking it over again and again, I decided to take one risk. It was a little after 4 in the morning. The virus should only have been starting to spread, so going outside ought to be relatively safe. Terrified, I made my way down to the first floor. There was a fire axe in the emergency cabinet, along with 2 fire extinguishers. I brought both the axe and the extinguishers back into my apartment, unless something unexpected happened. I wasn't leaving again until it was safe. If those things still managed to get inside, then I'd just have to leave it to fate. I thought that with grim resignation, I decided I wouldn't open the curtains anymore. The apartment was dim, but it didn't really stop me from doing anything. First, I took inventory of all my supplies. I hadn't realized it before, but I actually had quite a lot. If I was the only one eating it, forget 2 months. It could probably last me 3. There were the frozen hot pot ingredients I'd bought, with tofu rolls and meatballs filling 2 drawers. At the bottom were ribs and chicken legs my mom had frozen, plus salted fish, sliced meat, and other things. There was also cabbage and tomatoes my mom had bought, cucumbers and potatoes too. The cabinets holding rice and flour were packed full. Besides those staples, there were plenty of dried foods, dried noodles, tofu skin, wood ear mushrooms, red dates, and more. And besides all that, there were the 2 huge bags of snacks I just bought. After organizing everything I had, I felt a lot more confident about surviving what came next. All that work in the morning had made me hungry. I decided that from now on, I'd only cook during the day. At night, forget turning on the lights. I wouldn't even light the stove. Countless movies and shows had taught me that once the apocalypse really came, people were often more frightening than zombies. I was simply taking precautions before it was too late. In times like these, Every bit of food had to be conserved. Even the tough old vegetable stems I normally refused to eat were chewed up and swallowed. After finishing all that, I called my parents again, and we updated each other on how we were doing. After the call, I started browsing online videos again. But the more I searched, the more I realized that terms like apocalypse and zombies seemed to have been blocked. I couldn't find anything at all. After searching for 2 hours, I came up empty-handed. After dinner, I noticed that all the major headlines on my phone were carrying the latest official announcement. Recently, outbreaks had resurged in several regions. Researchers had identified a new mutated virus. It was highly contagious, and symptoms developed extremely quickly. If anyone developed a fever and a greenish complexion, they were told to call the disease control hotline immediately. As soon as the announcement came out, the whole country was stunned. Another outbreak and green faces? Plenty of people online who didn't know the truth were already making jokes. But I had already guessed what was really happening, and all I felt was a chill run through my entire body. A zombie apocalypse. How did I actually end up living through one? What kind of cursed life was this? People who didn't know the truth were still joking around. Like the neighbors upstairs from me, they hadn't quieted down once since nightfall. On any normal day, I'd have gone upstairs to confront them in the morning. But now, all I could do was put up with it. I hid behind the curtains and carefully watched the entrance to the neighborhood. As I kept watching, I saw a group of people get out of a patrol vehicle near the gate. What was going on? Carefully, I pulled the curtains even tighter. It looked like they were heading toward my building. Could someone in our building have been infected? Before long, I heard even louder commotion coming from upstairs. Had I guessed wrong? Were they actually here to deal with a noise complaint? Before going to sleep, I called my parents again. We reassured each other that we were safe, and then I lay down in bed. Maybe it was because I was cold, or maybe I had too much on my mind. When I woke up, it was still dark outside. First, I went to check the front door. After making sure everything was secure, I quietly went back to staring at the streetlights outside. I didn't want to look at my phone.
I didn't want to watch any shows either. I couldn't fall asleep, and all I wanted to do was sit there blankly. The night seemed unusually dark. Where were the streetlights?
At some point, every streetlight outside had gone out. Everything beyond the window was pitch black. I crawled back under the blanket and waved a hand in front of my face. I genuinely couldn't see it. I don't remember when I finally fell asleep. I had no idea how long I slept that time. I wanted to call my parents as soon as I woke up, but no matter how many times I tried, the call wouldn't go through. Was my phone broken? Then I'd try WeChat. That was when I noticed a red exclamation mark beside my messages. So it wasn't my phone. There was no signal at all. Today was the 5th day of my quarantine, and the 3rd day I'd been completely cut off from the world without a signal. I cooked myself a meal today too, though it didn't taste very good. I didn't dare turn on the kitchen exhaust fan. Anything I could boil, I boiled. First, it was easy. Second, boiling food didn't create much smell. I finished the meal with a few side dishes. There was enough left in the pot for tomorrow too. With no internet, I knew absolutely nothing about what was happening outside, but I had much more time to think. After thinking through everything that had happened over the past few days, I realized the people upstairs might not have been having a party that night. I suspected the family upstairs had actually become infected. Thinking that, I suddenly realized how strangely calm I'd been. Maybe I really could survive until the end. Today was the 15th day of quarantine. It started raining. A few days earlier, when I'd noticed the sky growing dark and realized rain was coming, I filled every available container at home with clean drinking water. Countless novels and TV shows had taught me that rain during an apocalypse could contaminate clean water supplies. I had no idea whether that was actually true, but I decided to prepare for both possibilities anyway. Day 16 of quarantine, the water was shut off. Seriously? Water contamination. My thoughts immediately started racing toward all kinds of terrifying possibilities. Maybe it was because I hadn't talked to anyone in so long, but lately my imagination had been running wild. I could look at 2 towels of different colors and invent an entire heartbreaking story about them. In other words, cabin fever was getting to me. Day 18 of quarantine. The water came back on, but I decided to wait before using it. I still had some of the water I'd stored, so I would use that first. That would also give me time to see whether the tap water was really safe again. Day 28 of quarantine. Even though I'd been rationing my vegetables carefully, I had completely run out of leafy greens. A few days earlier, the only vegetables left in the apartment were potatoes that kept well, and some frozen tomatoes. That day, I'd just taken out a boiled potato and was about to eat it with soy sauce when I suddenly heard something strange outside my door. In such an extremely quiet environment, Even the smallest sound became impossible to ignore. I carefully walked over to check. There really were people outside. The older man was keeping watch, while the younger one was using something to work at my lock. It looked like he was trying to pick it. My apartment had been targeted. The men outside my door eventually gave up and left that night. I heard them cursing in the hallway, saying my iron security door was too sturdy. Let's try the next apartment. Their footsteps moved down the stairs. The sound grew farther and farther away, until I couldn't hear them at all. I didn't dare move immediately. I stood behind the door, gripping the axe for nearly an hour. Only after confirming there wasn't a single sound left in the hallway did I slowly retreat back into the living room. The clothes on my back were completely soaked with sweat, clinging coldly to my skin. From that day on, I dragged a recliner beside the door every night and kept the axe within easy reach. Even then, I could never sleep soundly. I'd press my ear against the door and listen for ages. Day 30, day 40. By day 50, the tally marks on the wall kept multiplying, while my supplies kept shrinking. I cut my 2 meals a day down to 1, then split that single meal into breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Each time, I ate only a few bites. The potatoes started sprouting. I cut off the sprouts and kept boiling them anyway. The tomatoes had turned into sauce, so each time I mixed a tiny spoonful into flour paste. When the flour was almost gone, I searched every cabinet for anything edible. Dried foods, red dates, wood ear mushrooms and tofu skin were soaked and boiled into a pot of mush. That barely kept me going for a few more days. The hardest part was that the water supply stopped again for a while. It eventually came back, but I still never dared drink it straight from the tap. Every time I boiled it, let it cool, and then bottled it. By around day 60, the kitchen was practically empty. I counted what I had left. Some egg-flavored crackers, enough for maybe 10 days if I rationed them, 1 small bottle of soy sauce, and a few heads of garlic. I broke the crackers into pieces no bigger than a fingernail, and chewed only 2 pieces a day. With a few sips of water, I forced myself through the whole day. I was truly starving. My stomach felt painfully hollow. Sometimes, lying in bed, I could hear it growling loudly, as if it were protesting, but I kept telling myself to hold on a little longer. The country wouldn't abandon us, and my parents would be all right too. Around day 70, I came down with a fever. I didn't know whether it was from hunger or from catching a chill. My forehead was burning hot, and I had no strength anywhere in my body. Even turning over in bed took all my energy. I curled up tightly beneath the blanket. That day, I didn't even have the strength to boil water. I swallowed 2 fever-reducing pills with cold water from a bottle, then drifted into a feverish sleep. Half conscious, I thought I heard something. The sound seemed very far away, like announcements coming through a loudspeaker, or maybe the roar of vehicle engines. I wanted to crawl to the window and look, but my body simply wouldn't obey me. My eyelids were too heavy to lift. Then I fell asleep again. No, I must have passed out. I don't know how much time passed. I felt someone touching my forehead. The hand was warm and carried a familiar feeling. It reminded me of when I was very little and got sick, and Mom would get up in the middle of the night to take care of me. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt as if they'd been glued shut. Jojo, Jojo, how are you feeling? Someone was calling my name. Using every bit of strength I had, I opened my eyes just a crack. The room was dim. The curtains were still closed, but I could see 2 faces leaning over me. Dad and Mom. They looked as though they'd traveled a very long way. My mother's eyes were red, and the moment she saw me open mine, tears streamed down her face. Only later did I learn that the area around Grandma's home had remained relatively safe. The village had locked down early, and every household already had food stored. Grandma's yard was also large, and they'd covered the roof area with stainless steel barriers. They guarded the place carefully, and somehow nothing serious ever happened there. Later, the country developed effective medicine and a vaccine. After vaccination was rolled out on a large scale, the outbreak was gradually brought under control. Once the lockdowns were lifted, Dad immediately tried to come back for me, but there were still many checkpoints along the roads, so they had to wait several days before traffic reopened. The moment they reached home, they tried calling me. When they couldn't get through, they panicked and contacted property management. Management told them I was the only registered resident left in our building. They rushed upstairs and found me lying unconscious in bed with a raging fever. After reassuring them, I walked out onto the balcony. I turned and looked outside. The sky was brilliantly blue, bluer than anything I'd seen in a very long time. Suddenly, those 70+ days of darkness. Fear and hunger felt like nothing more than a dream. And now, the dream was finally over.